I'd originally planned on doing another episode of Marvel characters fused with Mortal Kombat characters a lot sooner than now, but the SCP Superheroes videos were really popular and I was really enjoying making them, so I pushed this to make another couple of those. Then the animated Mech Armors episodes with Benny Shop ended up being a lot more popular than I expected, so I did a sequel to that and pushed this again. But today we're finally back, another round of Marvel Kombat. And since I've already made people wait a while for this episode, I say we don't drag out this intro and we just get right into it, yeah? Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. For 6 generations now, heroes of different realms have fought in the great tournament of Marvel Kombat to show their might and protect their realms. For if one realm were to win 6 tournaments in a row, they'd be granted the 6 mighty Infinity Gems, as well as the right to invade whatever realm they so chose. The Mad Tyrant, Thau-Kanos, had won 5 in a row before finally being defeated by the might of Earthrealm. And while he was finally beaten, it doesn't mean many great heroes hadn't fallen to his forces along the way. Though one warrior, thought to be killed by Kanos' greatest combatant, actually returned for that fateful 6th tournament. In the very first Marvel Kombat tournament, one of Earthrealm's mightiest protectors was a now fabled warrior who many have looked up to as one of Earthrealm's greatest heroes, Steve Lao, better known as the Great Captain Lao. He was fresh out of fighting in the Second World War when he heard the tale of the first Marvel Kombat tournament. At that time, few other Earthrealm heroes were entering. One of the only few was Earthrealm's eternal protector, the god of thunder and lightning, Thoradin, who'd been goaded into entering the tournament by his treacherous brother Shinnok. The god hardly gave Captain Lao the time of day, as Thoradin assumed he'd win the tournament with ease, but over the course of the battles, he saw Captain Lao fighting well and was very impressed with the mortal. Sadly, he also watched as Lao came up against his final opponent, Goro Obsidian, Kanos' mightiest warrior, who managed to defeat Lao and beat him within an inch of his life. Thoradin prepared to take on Goro Obsidian next, but before doing so, he summoned a storm of eternal godly magic to freeze Lao's body where it lay, so that if one day humanity had the technology to save his nearly dead body, they could thaw him out and get him fighting again. And so there the great Captain Lao stayed for the next generations, unaware of Thoradin breaking the rules of Marvel Kombat and being stripped of his powers, followed by Earthrealm losing one tournament after the next until well into the 21st century, when Kanos only needed one more victory to claim the last gem and invade Earthrealm. It was only then that Thoradin had finally decided to help train Earthrealm's last line of heroes, and recalled that Captain Lao's damaged body was still frozen and waiting to be revived. With help from his new friends, Thoradin found Lao's body, thawed him out, and healed him. While being a man out of time was a jarring development for Captain Lao, he was grateful to Thoradin and his new allies for bringing him back. He trained with them and was one of the many heroes to help finally stop Kanos' forces in the 6th Marvel Kombat tournament. And while ultimately Captain Lao would not be the hero to defeat Kanos himself, he would be given another shot at the beast who'd beaten him before, Goro Obsidian. In that battle, the good captain would finally defeat his age-old rival. Now once Thau-Kanos was defeated, Earthrealm began to train the next generation of heroes for the next tournament. But that didn't mean that fighting in Marvel Kombat would be their only problem. You see, Thoradin's treacherous brother Shinnok was waiting on the sidelines of the tournaments, aiding Thau-Kanos for his own purposes. You see, Shinnok had always been jealous of his brother Thoradin for being made protector of Earthrealm, when Shinnok believed his brother to be all brawn without the cleverness needed to be a well-rounded god and savior. Shinnok had been helping Kanos under the condition that Shinnok be granted rule over Earthrealm once the realm was defeated in the 6th Marvel Kombat tournament, only answering, of course, to Thau-Kanos. Kanos had agreed, but now that he was defeated in the 6th tournament and the Infinity Gems were taken back by the Eternal Gods, Shinnok would have to wait a long time before ruling over the realm. The impatient god grudgingly sat on the sidelines waiting again for the next few decades, until the next tournament came, but Earthrealm's heroes had continued their training, as well as trained a new generation of fighters. Thaokanos' forces were again defeated in Marvel Kombat, and Shinnok decided he was finished entrusting his future to the Mad Tyrant. The mischievous god came up with a new plan. Earthrealm now possessed 2 Infinity Gems, which they'd locked away with no intention of using. Shinnok decided to go steal one of them and use it to defeat his brother, and show himself to be the more worthy protector of Earthrealm. The first gem they'd won had been hidden away in a temple, stored in a staff forged by Thoradin to contain its power. Shinnok stormed the temple and tried to steal it, but as he reached the room the staff was stored in, he was confronted by Earth's mightiest combatants. But they were tired and worn from Marvel Kombat and more easily defeated than usual. With the power of the staff, Shinnok even managed to brainwash Clint Cage into fighting against his wife and allies. But with the older heroes on the brink of defeat, Clint and Natasha Blade's daughter, Kate Cage, and the next generation of fighters joined the battle. Shinnok did not expect them to hold their own so well, and eventually the staff would be struck from his hands, and he'd be left fighting one-on-one with Kate Cage, the winner of this generation's tournament. It would be a lengthy battle, but her years of training from the best heroes around had paid off, and Kate was indeed able to defeat the treacherous god. Ashamed of his brother, but still loving him enough to refuse killing him, Thoradin brought Shinnok before the Eternal Gods. The Eternal Gods deemed that if he was so insistent on ruling over a realm that he'd break the rules of Marvel Kombat to try taking one, his punishment could be a cold reflection of that. He was banished to the realm of the dead, Netherhell, where instead of being a god of mischief, he could now rule the underworld as the god of the dead. Now, while the tales of those protecting whole realms are of course intriguing ones to be sure, it would be a shame to overlook the continuing tales of the Shirai X and the Quay Strikers. These two groups have been rivals for as long as the Marvel Kombat tournaments have run, and in the 6th tournament, a fatal battle occurred between half-brothers from opposing clans. Logan Hasashi of the Shirai X, a previous member of the Quay Strikers who'd been kidnapped and physically enhanced by them, had finally slain his treacherous half-brother, Bihan Creed, who'd been working as an assassin under the title of Sub-Saber. But now the Quay Strikers felt they needed a new Sub-Saber, one who could finally slay Logan Hasashi for his betrayal of his former group. Unfortunately for Logan, they had the resources to not find, but create a new, improved Sub-Saber. After Bihan Creed was slain, they immediately got to work using DNA from Logan Hasashi that they still had from when they experimented on him to create a clone of him, one intended to be his superior in combat. The researcher running the project went through 22 attempts before finally realizing she needed to fill in some of the gaps in the DNA to make a successful clone. She ended up using some of her own DNA in the process, which finally set the first successful experiment on its path, and led to the clone being created female as a result of the alteration to the DNA sample. 20 years went by full of non-stop training for this new Sub-Saber, and in that time she became a ruthless fighter. She had the extended lifespan and healing abilities of Logan Hasashi and the cryomancy skills of Bihan Creed. They finally sent her after Logan when they believed she was ready, but they were not ready for what would occur upon the initial meeting. The new Sub-Saber found Logan in a Japanese forest, living a quiet life, only ever leaving when desperately needed by the Shirai X. Sub-Saber brutally assaulted the weathered warrior, who defended himself well but did not fight back. He managed to bring the fight to a standstill and talk to the assassin. He said he had no wish to fight her. While he disapproved of how the Quay Strikers operated, he realized from how close Thaokanos' forces had gotten to winning the right to invade Earthrealm that Earth's potential saviors should not be wasting time fighting each other. The Shirai X and Quay Strikers both had many combatants whose time would be better served training to protect Earthrealm. He made a good case for peace between the clans, and their relationship would still remain tenuous for quite some time. but eventually when this new sub-saber rose through the ranks to become the leader of the Quay Strikers, well, occasionally working with Hisashi as an ambassador to his own tribe, the two long warring clans of ninjas would finally be at peace with one another, further solidifying Earth's defenses against whatever they may face next. Earthrealm indeed has its share of heroic combatants who are willing to fight for their home realm, but that doesn't mean there's a lack of treacherous mortals who are willing to sell out their world at the drop of a hat. You see, there is a group called the Black Claws, led by a man named Ulysses Kano. He's a notorious black market arms dealer who's worked for warlords on Earthrealm and beyond, even having traded weaponry to Thaukanos for his army in the past. Now, Ulysses Kano has many villainous thugs working under his command, and one of his best and fiercest attack dogs is Kabal Masters. Masters has the ability to mirror anyone's fighting style simply by watching them fight for a short while. This has made him a deadly assassin to near any he comes across in the field, but that hasn't always protected him from everything. Prior to the 6th Marvel Kombat tournament, Ulysses and Cabal were on a job together, robbing an American arms storage facility. They'd split up to gather as much as they could take when Kano was attacked by Natasha Blade, whom, unbeknownst to these two, had been charged with guarding the facility after hearing rumors of a pending robbery by the Black Claws. Her fight with Ulysses ended with her severing one of his arms and seriously wounding his right eye. She then went after Cabal, but unknown to her, Kano was not down and out for good. He'd managed to scramble from the base and initiate his Plan B. He called in to some mercenaries on standby to fire a rocket into the base. The entire place soon erupted in a massive explosion. Natasha had been warned of the incoming missile and managed to escape, but Cabal had not been able to get away. He was horribly burned in the incident, and when the Black Claws recovered him, they had to do serious surgery and give him some mechanical augmentations to keep him alive. When he finally came to, he was arguably even more suited to be a soldier for the Black Claws. His augmentations had given him super speed, and his durability was beyond that of an average human now too. Because of this, Ulysses Kano neglected to tell Cabal that he'd sent the rocket that had resulted in him being in this horrifically burned and altered state. In fact, he told Cabal that Natasha Blade had called in the rocket, and that all his current misfortunes were her fault. From then on, Cabal Masters swore revenge on Natasha, continuing to work for Ulysses as the most vicious assassin under the banner of the Black Claws. Well, I'd call that another successful round of Marvel Kombat. And do people want me to do another episode of this? Because I'm definitely open to that. I've referenced a bunch of characters that I haven't drawn yet. And lots of people in the comments have given good ideas for other character fusions I could make. Or you could also give me ideas in the comments for other stuff I could do with Mortal Kombat characters. Now that I've studied the lore a ton for making these episodes, it's going to be a lot easier for me to write Mortal Kombat episodes in the future. You could also suggest stuff I could do with Marvel characters, but I've done way more with Marvel characters so far than I have Mortal Kombat characters. If you're new to the channel, you could check out the previous episode of this, but you could also check out my Marvel characters as Mandalorians, or as dragons, or my very long-running series of weird Marvel and DC fusions, or a whole bunch of other kinds of Marvel videos. But anyway, everybody, besides that, that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the Nerdy Start videos on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed yourself. I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye!